Good evening, everyone. My name is Powell, and this evening I bring you greetings from our corporate women's ministry department of the Church of God of Prophecy in the UK. My co-host tonight is Barbara July.
Hi everyone, it's really good to be here tonight, and thank you for choosing to spend your Saturday evening with us here with the Connect Live. And we just want to shout out to Joyce Fletcher, our National Women's Ministry leader, who I know is watching at the moment. We miss you, and we're so looking forward to seeing you back doing what you do so well, hosting this Connect Live series. I'm honoured, Alni, to be co-hosting with your good self, and I'm really looking forward to our discussion tonight.
Right. Okay, Barbara. I'm also looking forward for tonight's discussion. Again, so welcome to all our regular viewers, and a special welcome if this is your first time tuning in to our Connect Live series. I want to particularly welcome all our UK families, friends from our regions, Region 1, London, North and South, Region 2, Berkshire and Buckinghamshire, Region 3, Bristol, Gloucester, Swindon and South Wales, Region 4 in the West Midlands, Region 5, Yorkshire, Region 6, Greater Manchester. And I know that there are those who are also watching overseas. So we welcome our overseas viewers from Europe, from the Caribbean and Africa. So please put your country's name and flag in the social media chat. So tonight, we are continuing with the theme from October 2021. Let's talk about singleness. It was a very exciting session we had, and so therefore we had a great demand for us to repeat, hence the reason why we're here this evening to talk about singleness. This is a real lived experience for many, and as such, we felt it would be so good to delve a little deeper into this important discussion. Tonight's format will be a little different, so it'll be more a form of discussion instead of a presentation, in that we have 4 female panelists and 2 males. Secondly, the evening will take the form of debate, as I said before, and discussion on this topical issue. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We're happy to see your questions. And if the evening goes, we have already got some questions already prepared, but we'll try and address your questions if we've got any time left. So at this time, I would like to hand over to you, my co-host, Barbara.
Thank you, Alni. And yes, you've mentioned our panel, and we are so pleased to have with us tonight our panel who will introduce themselves to you. We have Andrina Davis, we have Antonio Christopher, we have from the British Virgin Islands, Emily George, we have Ryan, and we have Zena Marie. Over to you, Andrina.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm really excited to be talking about such an important topic in the terms of Christian singleness. My name is Andrina Davis, in case you didn't know. I'm a single mom from Birmingham, and I'm just passionate about seeing Christian single women in particular thrive and grow in whatever circumstance they find themselves in. I'd like to now hand over to one of our co-panelists, which is Antonio.
Greetings. Good evening, everybody. I am Antonio Christopher. I'm a pastor at Alpha and Omega Christian Fellowship. Again, I'm very elated to be on this forum tonight to discuss the matters of singleness. And I now hand you over to Emily.
Good evening. I am Emily George, from the British Virgin Islands. I'm single, never been married, and I'm happy to be a part of this panelist tonight. I love the Lord, and He's my best friend. I now turn you over to Ryan, who would introduce himself.
Thank you for introducing me. Good evening, all. My name is Ryan Gordon. I'm looking forward to today's talk on singleness. I'm excited to be here. There's lots to share and lots to discuss. And I'm just looking forward to a great evening. All right, I'll hand you over to Zena.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Just wanted to say a massive thank you for everyone to join, all you amazing people. I'm absolutely honoured to have been asked to join the panel for Singleness Part 2. And I'm really, really excited to deep dive into some of the questions that are going to be asked. And also, I would like to learn from the panel and from the rest of the world as well. So thank you very much again for joining, and I'm now going to hand back over to our wonderful hosts.
Thank you, Zena, and thank you to our panel for accepting the challenge to join our discussion
Yes.
tonight. So, as Alni said, following on from the first Let's Talk About Singleness episode, tonight we are taking it to the next level. So, in the planning, we thought, let's invite some people who may represent the people who are watching, people who are single, people who are dating, people who may have been in a relationship before but now single, and let's just talk, let's have a dialogue, let's talk about singleness. So we're going to get real tonight. We're talking about singleness in its entirety, and we're talking about dating, we're talking about sex, we're talking about relationships as a single question. So just a disclaimer for those of you who may be watching with young family members, if you've not had the conversation about the birds and bees, and you may not want it to be the night they find out, there are going to be some questions that you may just be mindful that you may want to ask them to leave the room or go and get that thing for you whilst we talk. Okay, so the reason we are doing this is that we really want to encourage everyone to embrace the time and the season that God has placed you in singleness. So now that the stage is set, who's ready for some tough questions? And we'll start with you, Antonio. And the first question is around the subject of polygamy. And I watch a program, and it's a program called Seeking Sister Wives, and it's really about couples who are married or in a relationship who decide that they want to have a third person, or on occasion 4, 5, 6 others in the relationship. So I think polygamy, the thought of polygamy is growing. People are getting more of an interest in it. So a question to you, Antonio: should the church embrace polygamous marriage as accepted in the Old Testament? Because ultimately, nowhere is it written that it's a sin, and God is not respect of culture, traditions, or religion. So if there is no Bible rejection, why is it not accepted by the church?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question, because a lot of people, as you said, are actually embracing polygamy. For example, we got the Church of the Latter-day Saints, known as the Mormons. According to their doctrine and their Bible, they do allow more than one wife, and that's a so-called Christian organization. And of course, there are several traditional, cultural people of the world who embrace it. I can just name a couple of African cultures or Islamic cultures, or even where I've been to Indian cultures, where polygamy, or men with multiple wives, or actually women with multiple husbands, are actually accepted. So the question is, should this be allowed in the church? Well, good question. First of all, let's go right to the very beginning. I'm talking about, I've only got 5 minutes, actually 3 minutes, so I have to make this quick. Let's go back to the very beginning. Go back to God's blueprint, the schematic drawing. Male and female created he them. That's it. That's the original blueprint. So we are 4,000 years removed from the original drawing, God's intention, not what we have today. We got all sorts of excuses for not only polygamy but bigamy as well. So when we go back to the original intent, male and female, created he them, yeah. And also, he said it's not good that man to be alone. So I'm just going to kind of rush through quickly. I know we're going to get to this a bit deeper, and I accept your questions. But he said it's not good that man should be alone. So therefore, I will make him a woman as a helpmeet. Now, I don't see in the original schematics where he said, I'm going to make him a couple of wives, or I'm going to give him one for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I don't see none of that. He gave Adam one wife. Now, yes, in the Old Testament, we have people like Abraham who had more than one wife. We have people like David. We have people like Solomon, and we all know Solomon was a little bit off the chart with 800 concubines and so forth. So why did God allow this in the Old Testament? And as this sister said, it does not actually say that it's a sin. However, God has an intention, and all throughout the New Testament, you see, for example, a classic example is Ephesians, where it speaks about husbands submit to your own wife, or wife submit to your own husband. So that's not plural, not husbands, but husband. So there's a few texts in the New Testament where you'll find in the covenant where we are in now, not under the old covenant, but the new covenant, where the polygamous situation is not only frowned upon around the world, but it's obviously it'll cause a lot of problems. And as a matter of fact, when the Bible says that you now are you become one flesh, it did not say you become one flesh. It becomes man and female, one flesh together. And again, so as we go along through the night, I didn't want to spend too much time. I've only got a few minutes. We're going to get into on a deeper aspect as to why God allowed it. What is God's view about polygamy today, and how can we use the scripture to frown upon it? Now, look, it's true that many people from different cultures. I counsel. I've had people come to me saying, "Look, doctor, I'm coming to this country. I'm bringing over my 4 wives, but I want to be a Christian. Do I keep all 4 wives? Which one do I get rid of? And how do I explain it to wives number 4 and 5?" So we'll get into it eventually. And I hand over the mic again.
Thank you, Antonia. Thank you for sharing that, and I'm sure that that has sort of enlightened a lot of our understanding, because some people think because it was in the Old Testament, then it carried over into the New, but no, not at all. And as Antonia said, why did God allow it? Well, from the beginning, it was not so. But then, because of the hardness of man's heart, why certain things happen. But thank God for grace that in this generation, under the new covenant, the New Testament, it is certainly not allowed. So thank you, and I'm sure we're going to come back to that at some point. Okay, we'll move on then to the second question, and it states there are some singles who are happy to be single, but there are also others who desire to be married. Is there anything more that the church can do to help singles, male and female, to realize their desire to be married? If that is their desire, can you truly be happy if you desire to get married and you are single? I know that's a long question, but I'm sure you'll be able to address it. And I'm going to direct this question first to Andrina.
Thank you so much, Alni. Very big question indeed. In terms of whether you can truly be happy if you are single, I think it's all a matter of your personal preference or who you are. I think we can definitely have joy because we can have joy in Christ, and that doesn't matter about our circumstances or whatever we find ourselves in. We can have that contentment and that joy. In terms of happiness, I think there are things that can make you happy, but you may not truly feel happy until that deep, dark desire is realized. And in terms of what can the church do, I think there are so many things that the church can do, but I believe that the church doesn't really know what to do or doesn't really know how to help and support single people. So a couple of things that I would suggest is, number one, don't ignore the issue. Please don't, because when the church ignores it or because they don't know what to do, they don't talk about it, that can leave a lot of single people feeling despondent. It can make them feel that they're not cared about within the church. So it's definitely important that we speak about it and have forums and conferences like this where we can really highlight some of the difficulties that people are facing. I think the church needs to also encourage marriages and encourage people to get married and introduce people as well if you know people, if you know single people that are looking to get married.
Right, thank you. Thanks for that response. How about you, Zena? The same question to you.
Right, so just to kind of reiterate Andrina's point, it is a personal thing. You have to learn to be content and you have to learn to be happy with whatever situation, whatever cards you were dealt with. There's a saying that says, that nothing from without should dictate what happens within. So just to kind of go in on that point, it's just basically about our external circumstances should not dictate how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the issue, how we feel about being happy. Yes, I do think that there might be elements where we do think, actually, I don't know if I can really be happy if this desire has not been met. However, as Andrina rightly said, there is always something to be happy for. So just maybe list the things that while you're single, what is it that you can do? You can still live out your purpose. You can still hang out with friends. You can still help other people. But the biggest thing is your purpose. And it doesn't matter whatever state you're in. If you are not living out your purpose, you'll have everything to be happy with and nothing to be happy for. So that's what I will say on that point.
Thank you, Zena. You're so right, because some people think that, when I get married, I'll be happy, but you've got to be happy within yourself before, and don't expect that being married is going to fulfill that gap. And as you said, it's well about knowing your purpose. What is your purpose as a single person? And if you know your purpose, then when you go into marriage, it will be much easier. Same question to you, Emily.
Thank you, Alni. What I would say, I'll focus on the area of being happy, because sometimes we make decision or think as single people that if I get married, I will truly be happy. But there's no guarantee that you will be. There's no guarantee. And I do have to agree with Andrina that we have to really understand that our happiness truly lies in Christ. And to me, if we are content, it comes from within. And if we are content, I feel like we, in our situation, God can create a contentment, not meaning that we would never be married, but we just enjoying our singleness and ensuring that we are doing what He has called us to do.
Thank you. You said a key word about being content. And that is so true, that one has got to be content within themselves. Because if you're not, then when you go into a relationship, then it's not going to help the relationship. So you've got to really know who you are, and you've got to be happy within yourself. Thank you very much, panelists. Yeah, we're going to move on to the next question. It's about loneliness. I've heard people say, I'm single, but I'm not lonely. So, so let's look at it in terms of the weather, because there are some people that their moods change, fluctuates according to the weather, whether it's winter, autumn, summer. So this question is for Zena. Is loneliness more prominent in the winter months? And part two, do you find singleness harder in particular seasons? Over to you, Zena.
Thank you very much, Alni. Thank you. I will answer both questions in one. I don't want to speak for all the single people, but I think I'm going to speak for the majority when I say yes, in the winter months, it is more prominent, and I'll tell you why. So obviously it's international. We are UK based, but there's international people watching. So I would say from about November all the way through to February, and I'll go from there. So you have Thanksgiving, which is very family based, very much about love and gifts and giving. The same happens with Christmas. You see so many adverts, and I think maybe you being the only person at, for example, like a family gathering or a get together or your friends reunion, and you feel like, oh, I'm the one person again that's not with somebody for another year, or maybe you've had a breakup and then you're going for the first time and that feels a little bit uncomfortable. And then I think there's so much that you can do as a couple, and I think even in terms of, like I said, the advertising, the different trips that you can go on, yes, you can do those with your friends, but I think it pushes kind of this family unit even more, relationship unit even more. And then that's when you see all of the engagements, especially Christmas, New Year's. It's almost inevitable, especially if you're on social media, you'll probably see, I said yes probably about 100 times. And then after Christmas and you go into New Year. And then for a lot of people, they might feel that disappointment, especially if they were hoping for that in that year. Or like I said, if they've had a breakup, it feels like it's amplified even more. And then not forgetting February, which is coming up in the next few days, and it's already started Valentine's Day. So actually, it is a bit of a facade, because if you speak to a lot of people that are in a couple, they don't actually celebrate it. As a single person, it is very much in your face, so they can feel very much less than. And then also, just touching on the winter months itself, it's cold, so more people are inside, and I think it's not emphasized as much in the summer months. So that's what I would say on that point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's going to vary, I suppose, and for some people, they can identify with, especially certain times of the month, they're more happier. And as you say, during the winter season where it's cold, sometimes people don't want to go out, but then in the during the summer months, there's more likely that they'll be able to go for a walk to the park. So yes, it does have some significance in terms of feeling lonely. Okay, we're going to move on to question number 4, and it's going to, for again, Zena and Emily, and then Barbara is going to take question 5. Okay, question 4. Do you think that the older generation play a part in the younger generation being single for a longer duration based on expectation? Wow. I'm part of the older generation, so I hope that I'm not, I have not hindered anyone. So let's repeat the question again. Do you think that the older generation play a part in the younger generation being single for a longer duration based on expectation? Over to you, Zena.
Thank you, Alni. Gosh, that is a question. I wouldn't necessarily say it as in terms of like a blame game. If someone's if someone is single in a single season for longer, because of the older generation, I do feel that the older generation have perhaps different expectations. and they would have done things very differently. So they might be given advice based on what they had done then, whereas it might not be up to scratch with how the modern 21st century woman is, or the modern 21st century male is. And therefore, say, for example, if they are given advice, that it may be that the younger person who is taking that advice, it might kind of just orchestrate it to a different direction rather than the direction that it's moving with the 21st century. For example, i.e. Social media or online dating in general. Some people older people may feel that's not the right way to go about things because of based off of what they would have had in the past. So I think it's down to the individual, but they might play a part, but I wouldn't necessarily blame them for that reason.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Zena. Emily, what's your view on this question?
For me, I really, my conviction is that honestly, I feel like when it comes to whatever we are supposed to have in life, I believe God is in control of it. So to me, as for me, when I look at my life, everything to me I've asked the Lord for, I have, except a husband. So to me, He is in control of that. So I know that sometimes the older generation may have certain expectation of you. They'll be like, maybe you should marry to this person or that person. But I think it comes down to the individual making the final decision in terms of who they will marry. So to me, I feel like that is I don't feel like I wouldn't want to say that they cause us to be single long. I just would say they look at things from a different perspective, but we cannot allow them to control our decision.
Thank you. Over to you, Barbara.
Thank you, Alni. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Zena, for that. Okay, I have a question for Andrina. This is really about how we view marriage against singleness. So I got married quite late. I got married at 35. So most of my life is spent being single. And looking back, I wish that I embraced my season of singleness a bit more, to be honest, because all I wanted was to be married. Does that make sense? So, do you think that being married is put on a pedestal, certainly over in the state of singleness, particularly in the church?
That's a really, really big question. And I think it's interesting because I would say probably a lot of single people want to be married, and maybe don't even recognize how great a period singleness actually is, to be able to do your own things and make your own decisions and what have you. I do believe that the church values marriage quite highly, and I think maybe as a single person it does appear that it's put on a pedestal. Married people might say something different. They might say no, it's not, but we definitely are aware that marriage is the aim. I think it's safe to say, and marriage is always definitely promoted. I think single people probably put it on a pedestal themselves in terms of it's the goal, it's what I want, it's my desire, it's the prize. If I do what I'm supposed to do, if I'm a good Christian, then that will be my reward. And I think we as single people might put it on a pedestal more than even the church does.
Brilliant, thank you. How about you, Zini? What's your thoughts? Interested to hear your thoughts on this one.
So is this in particular to the church, or in general is it put on a pedestal?
I think the church, or you could answer in general, but particularly the church.
So in terms of, I'll answer this perspective of the church. I would say that yes, the church has created a narrative in that if you haven't been married or you're not married, then you haven't arrived. So forget about all the other achievements that you've had. You know, if you haven't reached that, then you know you haven't arrived. And I saw an illustration recently, and some people might have seen this, and it actually showed a picture of a bride, and then a picture of someone who just graduated, and said both to be celebrated. Then it had you go over to the next slide, and then it said it had a bride again, someone who's just come out of a domestic relationship. It said both to be celebrated. And I don't know if you're getting what I'm saying, and that's what I mean in terms of, there's always things to be celebrated within the church, aside from just someone who is married. And actually, I think that the church should work even more so with single people, because single people should have more time on their hands. So therefore, they should be able to take up doing more things. I think in part one, someone had actually mentioned about, not really being single people, not really being asked or being seen as to take up certain roles, when actually they are probably the ideal people for that in terms of in terms of those situations and circumstances. But I also do agree with Andrina in that single people definitely do put it on a pedestal. And in terms of what you were saying, Barbara, that you actually maybe you didn't make as much use of being single as you were, but I think preparation definitely puts you in that position. Instead of seeing it as a deficit, we need to kind of see it as something to be celebrated as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Totally agree with the points there. Totally agree with that. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on to someone who really does want to get married. How would you recommend that they go about meeting potential spouses? So, I guess more in recent years, online dating apps, Tinder, whatever you call it. And there's quite a few versions or variations of the Christian dating apps. There are a few out there. I've done my research, trust me. So, and I personally believe that there are certain channels that people use to meet someone, but really does have negative connotations to that. So, once again, on social media, you'll hear, I guess, worst case scenario stories where people have joined, Christian dating apps only to get embroiled or involved with men who really don't have the best intentions. They see them as easy targets. So, how would you recommend that someone realistically in this day and age sets about going to meet their potential spouse? And do you think that singles they need to look at how they meet people, perhaps out the box? So I'm going to give that question to Andrina again.
Thank you so much. The nice, difficult ones. I think for a long time, the church has, well, the church, the elders, whoever, have maintained a narrative of wait on God and your husband will come. Do what you need to do. Be a good Christian. Get your job. Get your house, and your husband will come. And I think a lot of single people, maybe women in particular, have done that, got their jobs, got their careers, been active in church, and unfortunately, they are still single. So I do think it's important that we start to think outside the box. Internet dating is a great way to meet people. A lot of people are meeting online, but just as you would be careful on anything. If somebody approached you in the street, if somebody approached you in church and said, I like you, would you like to go for a coffee? We have to always use our common sense, be safe, make good decisions when we're meeting people in whatever way we do. I think it's great when married people introduce single people, or if you've got two single friends and you think, oh, they might, get along, definitely do that. And I think as single people, we need to be open and receptive to people supporting us, especially if you want to get married. Sometimes we're like, oh, I don't want anyone knowing my business, or I don't want anyone setting me up, or what have you. But I think we need to be a little bit more open to the opportunities that present themselves. I think we need to participate in activities we enjoy, make sure we look decent and go out, present ourselves well, and smile, especially as women. Sometimes we can be a bit standoffish, but definitely smile, because that will attract people.
Okay, Andrina, so let's go a bit deeper, let's delve a bit deeper. What alternative methods have you personally used to try and meet someone?
Well, that's a little bit personal, isn't it? No. I am very active. No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm an open book. I'm very active on dating sites. I'm probably on all of them. And
Okay.
I try to keep a really open mind when I'm meeting people as well. So definitely looking for a Christian, but in terms of it, they might be outside of my race, they might be outside of the age that I
Yep.
prefer.
Good.
But I'm definitely like, let me just see. You never know how God can introduce people. I'm always asking friends and family members and anyone I meet
Yeah.
if they know anybody. So anybody out there, I'm single, put a message in the chat. I'm just open. I'll try anything, and I'm just willing to see what's out there and how I can meet
Brilliant.
somebody.
So just to say, Andrina, I am an active believer in married couples introducing where they can. I've done it several times in the past, various successes. Not all has been successful, but it hasn't stopped me introducing people. I think that's a brilliant
Definitely.
approach. Zena, so let's talk to you now about this question. So if you could answer the question, and similarly, I'd really love to hear from a personal perspective how you go about looking for a potential spouse.
Do you know what? I was going to say I'm probably the opposite to Andrina in terms of the dating sites. However, I think when people say online dating, they do actually think actual, um, or sorry, when I say online, online is online, so social media. I'm quite active on social media. I have an open profile on all of my on all of the different platforms that I'm on, which always makes a difference because imagine someone wanted to message you and you're on private, then they can't. But also as well, I've started to do the things, this is how I've met people, doing the things that I love and I enjoy. I don't think that there's anything better than actually finding someone that enjoys doing things that you enjoy doing as well. I'm not saying that they have to enjoy every single aspect, and it's actually nice to have things that may differ as well, because then you can still do those things with your friends or your family or solo. But I also think as well, preparation, because I think sometimes we think, oh, we've done this, we've done that. We've never necessarily arrived, and we never will, but we can always continue to work on ourselves. I mean, that business that you've been speaking about for years, start that. The gym that you wanted to join, start that, and you never know what can happen. I think a smile, like Andrina said, goes a long way. I think platforms like this go a really long way as well. But similar to Andrina, I wouldn't shy away, and I don't shy away from the fact, if someone's open and they say, actually, there's somebody that I think is interested, I'll be open to. So I'm one of those people. I know you said some people are not open to it, but I would absolutely be open to somebody, especially that I know,
Yeah.
or someone that I know loves me. Because they know me and they know what would be good for me, and also they might know my interests and what I'm
Yeah.
into. So I even think platforms like this, you never know, someone could send you that message afterwards. So those that
Yeah.
are open to it, I think you should just be honest and open and say, yep, if you are interested, then Barbara seems to be the matchmaker, so maybe let her know if you
Amen.
want any matches.
I am a good matchmaker. I'm a good matchmaker. Okay, Ryan, my dear friend Ryan, we go back a fair bit. Interesting to hear
Yeah.
your views on how should singles set about meeting a potential spouse, and particularly what have you done to meet a potential spouse? Really keen to hear that.
Barbara. Thank you. For me, when I look at how singles should set about meeting potential spouses, ultimately, okay, so I'm a little bit strategic in what I do and who I am. Um, and for me, it's really about what is my goal. And ultimately, my goal really is I want to get married, and I wanted to understand what the institution of marriage looks like. So, and and I sit through my, I mean, I'm 50 years of age, and I've seen a lot, done a lot, and everyone has their own idea of what marriage looks like, or their definition of what marriage looks like. So I'll just give quickly what I think my definition of marriage, or what I like it to look like, and then just take it on from there. I like it to be prayerful, trusting, supportive, very intimate, physically and mentally. It should include teamwork, being committed, and themes like this, loving and respectful. And being a Christian man, I think those foundations really give me the platform to, um, meet, through Barbara, having met my potential spouse. So, I always go back to scriptures because I'm a Christian man, and it said, and this is quite interesting for me, Ephesians 5:33 says, a man should love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife should respect her husband. So I looked at that, and I looked at, well, the man should love the wife, and the wife should respect the husband. So for me, if the man doesn't love the wife is not going to respect the husband. So I think it's, for us as men, it's our duty to love. Love our potential spouse and love our spouse, and it just gave me, the criteria and a platform that I needed to really look for a potential spouse. And I think, yeah, it's really important that we should change the way that we, date and meet people. I think that when you look at dating today, it's a lot harder for women than it is for men. There are a few good men, as they say, as a lot of women say. But being a man, that's what women say. But being a man, I think there's a lot of good guys out there, and I think it's just a little bit about understanding what men need and what they want, and then it's just growing from there. So for me, it's just really understanding, when I look at what does respect look like and what does love look like, I think it's really, really important to understand the values of what does respect look like and what does love look like. What does it mean for a woman to respect the man, and all encompassing, and what does it look like for a man to respect the woman? Yeah, that's my
Brilliant.
thoughts.
Thanks, Ryan. And I know that you're having spoken to you a lot in the past about kingdom marriages. So I
Yeah.
know that that's quite deep about what does a kingdom marriage look like. Does that mean that your only place that you would look for a potential spouse is a Christian woman? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, look, I have two children out of wedlock, okay,
Mm.
and I know that in my heart of hearts, you know, my foundation is God, my foundation is Christ, and I think that, that is the way forward for me.
Yeah,
My relationship with God is really deep, and I want someone who's on the same wavelength as me. I don't want to be
yeah,
in an environment or have a culture where,
yeah,
I don't want to put someone off because I'm praying or I'm reading the Bible. So, for me, what does respect look like? And this goes back to the wives respecting the husbands, and I want to love my future wife through the eyes of God. I think you said God is love. There's no greater love than God's love.
okay,
And
yeah,
for me, I want to love my wife. You know, through what does love look like for me, so for me, but then I want my
yeah,
wife
I
to
hear you.
respect as well, and
Okay,
that's really,
Ryan.
really important.
Yeah, brilliant. So, where should people, with your view, where would they go to meet that wife, that person?
Barbara, I came to, well, I think, well, yeah, Barbara. Barbara's matchmaking, brilliant at matchmaking, aren't you, Barbara? Yeah. And I think that when you look at the data out there, as to say, if you want to get a bit technical about it, for me, always friends and family works for me. Okay.
Yeah,
You can go online, you can go friends and family, you can go through work, you go through different environments. But I think that everybody meets their potential spouse and whatever, and they just got to be open to be sensitive to meeting someone in whatever environment they're in. But I think for me, it was safer. I met someone through you, and that
Yeah.
was safe for me because you knew the individual, and then, you know, and I trust your judgment, you know, and through prayer things have worked out, and yeah, we've just grown from there. So yeah, I think friends and family always works.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Andrina. Thanks, Nina. And thanks, Ryan, for being open and honest with those questions. Over to you, Alni, to probe some more.
Thank you, Barbara. It's so good to know that we've got a matchmaker in our church. Someone, it's really, you know, I'll share this with you. A couple of years ago, there was a sister at my local church, and she wanted her daughters to have respectful husbands, and she said to me, "Have I ever considered?" I suppose what she meant was like setting up some sort of system whereby I can perhaps interview suspected males. You know, I could be like a mediator to sort of check them out first, and then if I said, "Yeah, he seems right, he seems okay," then yeah, I can. And I think it sounds like that's something definitely you're doing, and I think it's a brilliant thing. And now we've got the testimony that is working. So you viewers, you single people who are out there, come on, contact Barbara July, and she'll be able to fix them.
You're going to have a long
Dear.
list now, Barbara. They're all going to be knocking down the
Example
door.
here, because Ryan, you know, that's so wonderful. In fact, this leads us to in the next question, because Ryan talks about being strategic in his selection. And he talks about having expectation, and there's nothing wrong in having expectation, because you talk about you wanted a wife who is supportive, a wife who is a team worker, someone who is committed, someone, and you quoted the Bible about loving your wife, and then the wife having that respect. So that's expectation, and I think it's good. You have to go into marriage with some form of expectation. In fact, in one of the first series we had, we talk about having a list. You know, however, that list has got to be realistic. So let's move on to as a follow-on, it's about expectation, and this is going to be for Zena and Emily. Do you think that those who are single have set their own expectations too high? And should singles compromise more than what they want? That goes to Zena.
Oh, can I say that some people are single because their expectations weren't high enough? But I won't go into that.
Hey, true.
I'll be good.
Wow.
But that has actually been some of the issue for some single people, that actually, had their expectations been high in the beginning, they wouldn't be single now. But everything works out anyway. So even if you change to have a higher expectation, Alni mentioned something about she used the term realistic. So I think, to be honest, you know, as an individual, if you really truly look at yourself, how are your expectations high? Do you qualify for the person that you are asking God for the person that you're hoping for? Are you preparing for that? Because a lot of the times, like, I'll give you an example. A lot of women, I hear a lot of women say, you know, they want a man to be confident. I think confidence attracts both sexes, to be honest. But I'll talk on the female. I'll talk from the female perspective. And a lot of the times, those women are not confident themselves. And then you have to think to yourself, okay, you're asking for this confident man. What type of woman would he be asking for? And sometimes it's not practical enough for you to ask for that, because imagine that person's up on the pulpit, for example, or that person is asked to speak at events, he's a speaker, and then he's asking you to come up alongside him, and you're sitting in the front row, you know, with your head down, you don't want to go up, you don't want to take the pictures. It comes with a lot, and that's why I think that sometimes it sounds nice on paper, or it sounds like it would be nice to say, this is the type of person that I want, but it's not realistic to yourself. It doesn't mean, though, that you can't actually have those expectations. It just means that you, going back to my point, you have to qualify for the person that you want. As I mentioned before, we're not perfect, and we never would have, arrived, but we can work on ourselves so that we do meet those, certain expectations. I also think as well, sorry, just going on the point of should singles compromise, I think there's things that could possibly be compromised on. Andrina mentioned when she's talking about her online dating that she's been open to race. Some people may need to broaden their age range is 2 years, and so the pool is this small. It might be that they're just saying, they need to be from Church of God of Prophecy, and then, the reality is, what's the percentage? Also, a massive one is height. Again, ladies, I'm not coming for you, but I'm a female.
Yeah.
I've been there, and I shouldn't be there because I'm 5'2". However, again, this whole height thing as well, a guy has to be this height. There's actually a book that I read called Love and Dating in the 21st Century by Rebecca Lynn Pope, and she actually lays out the foundation and the facts of men who are, I think, above 6 foot, and it's a very, very small percentage. So just be realistic within yourself. Okay, are you generally around a basketball team? If the answer is no, then you might need to go down a notch. It doesn't mean that someone can't be, we've got to be realistic. It doesn't mean someone's not going to make a great husband because they're 5'8", or, they've just missed the mark. No, I can't go on a date with you because, you're only 5'11", and actually, I really wanted 6'2". That's on the top of my list. So again, I think it's just knowing what to compromise on and not being too fussy, but also be open. And you can actually pray to be open as well and say, God, should this really be on my list? Is there certain areas that I need to leave to you, but I'm not going to compromise on these things? For example, if it's your faith and, where you want to go in life, I don't think you should compromise, especially on your own purpose. And that's why I emphasize the fact that you should be working on your purpose, because if you don't, then when you meet the person and you're trying to become this businesswoman or you're trying to open this restaurant, that's not how they met you. And that's when it causes an issue. So again, it's just being realistic.
Thank you, Zena. That's such a lovely response. And I'm going to ask you the same question, Emily. What's your view on expectations?
Well, when it comes to expectations, I'm going to look at it from 2 aspects. All right. One, the truth is, as a woman, when you are growing up as a girl, you tend to have an image that you would probably want to have a husband like your dad. And one of the things that was very strong with my dad was he was always a well-dressed man. He took time to really look well. So for me, I had that image that, I would definitely prefer to have a husband like my dad. But then as I grow older and in my Christian walk, I recognize that God truly knows the person that's best for me. And to me, some people would decide because you might be a professional person, you might be trained educationally, they're thinking that, oh, I'm looking for that same kind of person. And really and truly, that's not my number one expectation. I really would like the person to be, love the Lord and want to serve the Lord and want to do right. And I think that once that focus is there, and if I am trying to do the same, we can have a good relationship because we have the foundation for the relationship. So to me, in terms of compromising, it all depends. You can't just look at the physical. It's more than physical. It's much more than physical. We have to be able to connect, since we are Christian people, connect in a better way. So that's my feeling about it in terms of expectation. You don't have to really compromise, but then you have to be realistic about what you expect.
Right. Okay, that's so true. I mean, one of the thing about compromising and it's already been said about not compromising your faith, and
Right.
because sometimes a lot of people compromise their faith and they get in serious trouble. So that's very encouraging words, really, not to compromise your faith. Stick to what you believe in, and God, as you said, Emily, God will provide you the right person at the right time. So thank you very much for your input, and we're going to move on to the next question. um, looking at the 21st century woman, do you think that in the 21st century, women should be more forthcoming when it comes to interest in the opposite sex? And that question goes to Antonio. Do you think in the 21st century, women should be more forthcoming when it comes to interest in the opposite sex?
Wow, what a question. Look, here's the truth. Yeah, the problem that we face today in the church. Number one, there is just not enough men to go around. That's a fact. Uh, I admit that it's the same in the world. It's the same in the church, no matter where you go. And to undergird that question, here's the problem that we don't really discuss that much. There's two problems on both the male and the females. Yeah, the problem for the female is that there's not enough men. The problem for the male is that there's just too much women, and both of those has its issues. Yeah, and I'll talk as a man. Yeah, I mean, just think about a little boy going into a candy shop. They see all sorts of different sweets, pink sweets, red sweets, nice sweets, big sweets, sour sweets, and that little boy is just totally amazed and confused because he really doesn't know what to choose. And that's the problem that the male has these days. They may not want to admit it. The fact is, some of us, we tend to just pick and choose, not know where to go. Yes, the Bible does say that we should be the one that a man that seeks after a woman finds a good thing. Yeah, but there have to be some type of guidance. So, because of that, brothers and sisters, because there is such a plethora of females, sometimes we are discombobulated if we are not led by prayer in terms of how to choose. So there's nothing wrong with the 21st century woman giving that brother a little nudge. Nothing wrong with it at all. And I think Andrina and Zena has also discussed earlier about making themselves known, not pushy, by the way. I mean, you don't want him to go and bounce you over the head and say, well, look, I like you, come with me. No, but just be subtle. So the man should pick up. And part of the problem these days is a lot of men, they tend not to want to go out or launch out or to chase as they should. And sometimes it may take a little nudge from the sister that he's interested. How can they go about it? Well, we've discussed it already. With some have said online dating. Some have said, the woman can just make herself available in a subtle way. But I just want to say, be careful with the online dating thing, because I've had a bad experience in my past many years ago. The problem with online dating, it's like a CV. Yeah, when you send out a CV for a job, you massage that CV, you make it nice, amen, so that they can accept you. The same thing with online. They're going to put things up there. I've got muscles. I've got a six pack. I look nice. I've got Jerry curls. I look doing really well. And when you go to meet them, you find totally opposite to what they say. So be prayerful about the online. Sometimes that picture that they put up there is not actually them. So be careful.
Yeah.
But with respect
Yeah.
to women,
True.
having to meet men, yes, I think that women can approach men subtly, let them know that there's an interest, and the man can take the reins from there.
Okay, thank you, Antonio. How about you, Ryan? What's your view on this about 21st century women?
Do you know, for me, many years ago, um, yeah, I think it would have been. I think women today are different from many years ago. I don't think probably years ago a woman may have probably approached a man and say, "Look, I'm single." And these are probably from my experiences. It was always down to me to approach. Nowadays, women are a lot more confident. As we've seen the two ladies step out. But really, when you look at forthcoming, it's about self promotion. And whereas some women have that confidence to promote themselves as being single. There's some other women who probably maybe a little bit more shy about their experiences, a little bit more introverted, and they may not have that personality. So I think, but when I look at it biblically, Ruth put herself in a position to be found by her husband, and I think sometimes it'd be really us men. I speak for men. It's really important that we see that a woman puts herself in position when we're kind of chasing or in our search for a woman or wife, should I say? So, but for me, it's yeah, you know, I think that. For me, I'm probably, err on the side of chivalry, and I like to step out and approach my wife to be in all things, and then, allow her to flourish and grow and exude her confidence that way, But it's promoting that security that when she does promote herself to me, that, she's doing it because I'm a safe bet, I'm a safe character and a personality, and I think that's really important for me.
Thank you very much. That's very good answers. I think that the 21st women, they are more forthcoming than even in my generation. Because in my generation, when I was courting, that's the old-fashioned word, but I still use it. I wouldn't dare approach a male. I'm expecting them to come to me, and that's what happened. But now I think it's good that women nowadays, they're brave enough. And I like the analogy that you gave about Boaz. We need more Bowers, and we
Yes.
need more Ruth.
Yeah,
So
but I'd just
there's
like to
nothing wrong.
follow up on
Come
that.
on. Sorry.
I'd just like to follow up on that and that Boaz. I think that
Yeah.
with men, if they can feel that um, when they do approach a woman, that the woman that they speak to understands them as individuals, understands their needs, their wants, their interests. I think that's really important because I'm 50. I've approached women before, in all, and sometimes you find that with some women, it's about what they want and their agendas, and sometimes, and men find probably a little bit of lack of confidence because a woman's, they've got their house, they've got their car, they've got their job, they've got the money, so on and so forth. And some women, some guys find that a little bit intimidating, especially when a woman
Yeah,
is forthcoming with
Yeah.
her career, right?
that's
Then
right.
where is the level playing ground for the man to be say, well, look, I can't compete with that. I'm still achieving my goals and dreams, and you've done yours. But so sometimes there's that kind of different level playing fields. But for me, I think that um, when it's the what is the woman looking for? Is she willing to say to herself, look, I'm willing, prepared to take time to understand you, and that's where my relationship has grown because
Yeah.
my wife, he's taken time to understand me, and we've had ups and downs, and because now it's about becoming a team
Yeah.
rather than just coming with our own individual ideas. This is what I want, this is what I need, and if you
Yeah.
can't subscribe to this, then swipe left or swipe right, kind of
Yeah.
thing. For me, it's about what does my values, do we have, are we prepared to what's the word, compromise on our values for the better good for where we're going, and those kind of things. And I think that's really important, but that's hard to find those individuals. When you find it, keep it, ladies.
What the what does,
Good.
what does the Bible say about he that findeth a good woman, or
He that
yeah,
finds
findeth a good
You got
woman?
my
Absolutely.
So
gold one.
or a good wife. Yeah, there's a difference between a woman and a wife. Yeah. So, and the
Yes.
Bible said that if we find one, then we find a good thing. Thank you very much, Antonio and Ryan, for responding to this challenging question. I'm now going to hand over to Barbara.
Okay, thank you, Alni. So we're going to go into a question that I just want to state something before we go into this question. Firstly, that I am saved, sanctified, water baptized, filled with the Holy Ghost. I am saved, brethren. Okay, we're now going to go there. So one of the challenges of being single, As I said, I got married at 35, so I remember those challenges of being single. Is not just about being sexual with a partner, but if you don't have a partner, this is one of the things that I think that a lot of single people struggle with, and I can appreciate why. Because ultimately, we are sexual beings. Let's be honest, we are sexual beings. And when we look at even from a female perspective, there's certain times in our of the month where your hormones are raging, etc., etc. And I remember when I was younger, I worked with a colleague, and she kept on talking about DIY. And I was thinking she must go to B&Q a fair amount of times, but she wasn't. She was talking about the M word, masturbation. So, yes, I said it, masturbation. So my question is masturbation a sin? And if so, why? And I may open this out to the panel to get your views on it. Be prepared. But Antonio, could you kick off by responding to that?
Yes, absolutely. It's a wonderful question. It's something, as you said, that most of us who are living single for whatever reason have had to face. Of course, it is like you said, we are human. We have desires that should be fulfilled in a marriage. But if there's no marriage, what happens to the individual? Now, I run the men's ministry, the Iron Man Men's Ministry, and I can tell you 90% of males have actually engaged, if not higher than 90%. Also, I've counseled women who come in, and as since this is an open forum and we can talk freely, they've said, "Listen, here's the toy that I've been using, and this is my struggle." So, what do we do with that? The fact is that some of us are doing these things behind closed doors. I don't care how much sanctified we are, how much anointing comes out of our noise. The fact is, we are human beings, and therefore we will struggle with the flesh. So therefore, so what do we do with this? So masturbation. Now, of course, people have always, well, this is not in the Bible. But some people say, well, what about the sin of Onan? Isn't that part of masturbation? Well, let's get this correct. In the Old Testament, one of Judah's sons, Onan, that was not masturbation. He was killed for not giving his seed into the woman, and he dropped it on the floor or spilled it on the ground. So let's just cut that out because that's not even correct. Okay. What the problem with masturbation is this: it engages fantasy. Yeah, and let's just talk from the male for a perspective for a second. See, no man can look at a flower or look at the sky and masturbate. Here, there has to be a focus in his mind of a woman. Maybe a woman is cut different. They may not have to have a picture of a male, but most do. But men's definitely have to. So of course, you're dealing with fantasy. This fantasy will, of course, work in the mind, which goes to the heart, which takes it away from the purpose of the seed in the first place. Because when you masturbate, you spill the seed. Amen. And of course, it engenders lust. Now, people will say, well, where in the Bible can I find something that well, in Matthew 5, in chapter 5, where Jesus himself said, even if you have the thoughts in your head, you have already done it. So, as Juanita Bynum says, I'd rather go to hell for actually doing it rather than thinking about it. So that was her illustration. The fact is, when you thought about it in your mind and you indulge in it privately, you engage with a sin or with a fantasy. I don't care if a woman thinks of, and this is why I always tell women, be careful about these role plays. Yeah, because role plays goes into fantasy. If you got a husband and start thinking, well, I want him to dress up like a fireman or a policeman, so you're inviting three different people into your mind. So be careful with that. Just like men, watch out for men that say, well, honey, can you dress up like a schoolgirl? Right there, we got something in the making. So we're going to be very, very careful. But at the end of the day, masturbation, it comes again. It's an act on the body. Yeah, and especially for the male and for the female, to think of it. It's an act in the body, and it is a sin because you are actually engaging in lustful thoughts about someone else.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that response. Really appreciate it. My response is that I appreciate everything that you said, Antonio, and I agree with that. But the reality is that there are a lot of single people who face that challenge every day. And for me, masturbation can also be, you can be addicted to it as well. So you then become, it's an addiction. So, Zena, let me come to you. If you had a girlfriend who said to Zena, you know what, I've done it again, I did the M word, I masturbated and I didn't want to, what would you advise her to do, honestly?
I think it's the way that you look at things. I think number one, like you said, the most important thing is actually to acknowledge the fact that we are actually human beings. Um, Obviously, Dr. Antonio has kind of more mentioned on the male perspective, but as women, our bodies prepare ourselves every single month. Um, so yes, for a lot of people, it can be difficult. It is a challenge. I think it's important to remember that masturbation is an act of self gratification, and the Bible is quite clear on being able to have self control. I think I would definitely offer an ear, because I think sometimes we're quite quick to, you know, shout at people and say, oh, wow, you shouldn't be doing that, and shun people. And this
Yeah.
is where sometimes, especially in the church,
Mm.
people go the opposite direction, and they feel that people outside the church can understand them more than inside the church. So as I was saying, it's being able to acknowledge, actually, yes, I do tend to feel these things. Also, maybe what you're inputting. I know it sounds really, really small and minor, but there's so many things on Netflix, on Amazon Prime, that probably doesn't help. If you're watching reruns
Yeah.
of Power maybe every day or whatever, and
Yeah.
I know for a lot of people, it's like, do you know what? It's just all it is just a sex scene. But this is getting
No,
inputted, and then imagine you're watching that just
agree.
before you're going to bed.
Yeah.
If you think
I,
about people that are preparing for an exam and then they're inputting things before they go out,
yeah.
it's the same kind of
Yeah.
thing. And also music, also what you're reading. So
Yeah.
I would say that it's important to probably identify the types of things that you're engaging in as well, because that might not be helping.
Yeah. I agree with you, Zine, especially about what you watched. I remember some years ago, my stepson, I said, recommend something for me to watch, and he recommended Power. And I was off work and I was watching it, and my house is opposite a school gate. And I had to close the curtain because I thought if anyone sees what's on the screen, and I was so shocked. It was actually for me soft porn to the point where I couldn't watch it. I had to stop watching it. It was that graphic and sexually charged. But people may be watching that and don't recognize it is a trigger point. So it's being very aware of what your trigger points are. Emily, what's your view on it? Let's go to you. I'm really keen to hear what you think of this question.
Well, and to me, I would agree with Antonio. It's definitely, to me, it's like you have to have an image in your mind in terms of masturbating. And to me, how you would deal with your sexual sin, your sexual desires is very natural. And God has given it to us and He can help us with it. That's one thing. But I have to agree with Zena. We need to make adjustment. And for me, I remember when I was growing up, just got saved, and I used to like to watch the soap operas. And to me, it was beginning to affect me. So I decided I'm going to stop watching them, because you don't want to have triggers. You have to be very careful with that. And another thing too, I find at one point, if I stayed up late, like 12, my mind would begin to get very occupied, especially if I'm seeing
Yeah,
someone. And I had to
yeah,
decide that at one point I just decide I closing down at 10. I'm not going any
yeah,
later, even if I have stuff to do. So to me, you have to make decision. You have to know yourself and make decision of how you're gonna strive to maintain yourself, your purity.
yeah, yeah. Brilliant response. Andrina, what's your views? And then I'll come to Ryan.
I mean, I think a lot of people have said it all. To be fair, I do believe that sexual sin, masturbation, pornography, it can become a stronghold, and I think if we're not careful, and we start to open those doors, they will start to strangle us. So I agree in terms of, if somebody came to me and said they were struggling, I would hear them out, I would speak to them. I would see if they needed an accountability partner, because I know that people can't talk about these things, and I think that's one of the reasons that we're dying, is because people are holding on to these things. They don't know who they can talk to about it. They're struggling with it, and they don't have an outlet. And I know the enemy, he loves secrets, he loves things done in darkness, because that's what kills people quietly. So I think, if somebody was brave enough to have that discussion, then definitely we can put a plan together. We can be accountability partners. We can be accountable to each other. But
Yes.
definitely watching what you expose yourself to, what you listen to, and it's recognizing yourself as well in your body. And if you know you're feeling a little bit vulnerable, then you definitely know that there are certain things that you do not see, you do not do, you do not look at. You have to be quite, for myself, I know that I have to be quite intentional sometimes, because if I just allow myself to be, and even TikTok, just things that you can be scrolling, something can catch your eye. So I think it's a real issue. It's things that people are really, really struggling with, and I think we need to be more open about it, and have more frank discussions about it.
Yeah, thank you. Ryan, do you have any specific views on that question?
I do. Okay, so from a male perspective, um, I think coming from a background where I wasn't always a Christian, so sex was quite prevalent in my life, and there was a stage where, um, in my early days as a Christian, I was very profound, and I kind of set boundaries for myself. And I always looked at, when you look at masturbation, I said, oh, I don't want to be sinful. I want to find a wife, and someone that I don't have to really sin against God, as to say. But the harder that, I've that became for me, in finding a wife, because I didn't want to do the wrong thing. I actually looked at my values, and I actually realized that I don't actually just want to have a wife just for sex. So I had to come to terms with, what are my needs? What do I want? What am I looking for? Because, I don't want to sin against God, but then I don't want a wife just for sex. There's more values that what. So I had that battle. Um, and then and I'm being very transparent here, so and then in the end the need became great, and I stepped out. I had two children at wedlock, so on and so forth. But but God always, he never, he told me that I'll never leave you, never and never forsake you. So even though I approached God, and I said, oh Lord, I'm sorry, I repent, and these kind of things, I know that I had a certain level that I had to operate at, so that I didn't, kind of cause any, or feel that guilt really effectively. So for me, it got to a stage where I decided, look, I've had enough. I can't be doing this anymore. But then there was, and I'll be honest, there was a physiological aspect to it. No sex for ages. My stomach would knot up, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, I just got to relief. I got to do what I need to do." You know what I mean? Because we're human beings. I know we believe in the Spirit and the Holy Spirit, but we're physical beings. There's a physiological aspect to it. You got to understand how men operate. So sometimes women operate completely different. They can go ages, I suspect, without it, but us men sometimes we can't. And yeah, it's just how it is. I think, but they got to a stage where I said, right, the best way for me to operate is to find someone who shares similar values to myself. That, look, I don't want to have sex before marriage. Um, these are my standards. Um, do you share in that? No, arrivederci. yes, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
And now that there's someone who shares us, who feels as strongly as I do about sex before marriage, then we can say, right, and and I know what I'm like as an individual, and now I know what she's like. So I know that when we do get married, so on and so forth, then hallelujah, God bless me, and that's my wife, so on and so forth. Hey. but, but for me, but Barbara, I'll say this, right? It's really important, and I'll say this because I didn't want to get into a marriage where, that's really important. I say this, that I know that she wasn't, I don't know, for use of a better term, as lively as myself, because I don't want to get married and feel like, oh my God, I'm married to someone who's not sexual as me. This is going to be a problem because that's going to cause its thing. So we're open, we
Yeah.
discuss, we talk about things. And I
Yeah.
think, but we're mature about it. You know, the standard is Christianity, that's our levels. And then, we talk about things from a mature perspective. So, you know, and then from that we have our own values. So yeah,
Yeah.
now there's no more stress, there's no more guilt, there's
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
trusting God and
Yeah.
take it from there.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Before I go on to the next question, Alni, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Well,
And your thought got
well,
away.
well,
Yeah,
it's so good actually, that we can talk about it. And I know it
Yeah.
might be something that for years, as you rightly said, a lot of people might be doing it because they're human beings and they do have feelings. But
Mm.
I am glad for this forum, because if anybody was to come to me to say this is their issue, because doing
Yeah.
counseling, we've got to be able to help people. And as
Yeah.
somebody said, it can be an addiction. Then we have to be
Yeah.
able to make them accountable. I can't say, well, no, go away. I have got to be said,
Yeah.
well, I'm able to listen to you and to empathize with
Yeah.
them and to help them
Yeah.
to get over it. So this
Yeah.
has really helped me, and not to be shocked, not to think, oh gosh,
Yeah.
you're supposed to be a Christian, you're not supposed to have those
Yeah.
feelings, only married
Yeah.
people. But thank God that we can discuss it openly, and it's no
Mm.
longer a taboo subject.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Antonio, yeah, over to you, Antonio.
Just to bounce off on what Brother Ryan was saying, as well, and yourself, Barbara, you had firstly said that I agree with you when you said it's addictive. It is
Yeah.
absolutely addictive. I mean, I taught, not that I've done crack, but I know crack deals with the
Yeah.
nervous system. But you see, masturbation deals with the psychological approach, yeah?
Yeah.
And so once it does with
Yeah.
psychological, there's a lot of things involved, especially with males. You got the endorphins, you got testosterone, and all of that
Yeah.
lovely stuff that goes around our body. And it makes us,
Yeah.
here's the problem with that. There's always a level of guilt after the deed is done. Always. Especially if
100%.
you're a Christian. Because you know what you shouldn't be doing. But the fact is, you're drawn to it again. And sometimes, I think Zena said it as well. Zena had said an interesting point that you're trapped. Well, things that are done in darkness, the devil likes to catch you in a certain place where, and I always say to people, you cannot escape this issue unless you give it to God. You can't stop smoking unless
Amen.
you give it to God. You can't stop crack by yourself. The Bible said, surely he shall deliver thee from the trap or the snare of the devil and
Mm.
Of the
fowler.
enemy.
So that's
Yes.
we have to
Yeah.
turn it over to him. The same thing with
Yeah.
addiction. Now, the problem with masturbation, it leads to other things. It leads to pornography, as Sister Andrea had said.
Yeah.
It leads to cyber sex. It leads to all sorts of different avenues. In other words, you get sucked in, sucked in, and next thing you know, it's no longer private. You're taking it out on someone else. That's the problem. We're gonna catch
Yeah.
it while we can. And with males specifically, because we are designed to give the body and to release and to have that desire, it really plays havoc on the male psyche. Uh, yeah, that's basically it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Andrina, you wanted to come back and then I'll go to Ryan.
Yeah, just to say as well that I don't think as single
Yeah.
people we recognize um the impact of our actions in our singleness that what they might have on our married lives. So I think a lot of times,
Yeah.
you know, when we participate in sexual sin or masturbation or anything like that, we're actually setting ourselves up for real significant problems when we get married, even in terms
Right.
of fantasies, as Antonio said, and what we want and how we want it done. And then, you know, you
Yeah.
find your partner can't satisfy you because you've already exposed
True.
yourself to so much. And then you're going through a whole
Yeah.
load of things during your marriage where you're trying to unpick what it was and what it happened. And I think it's very similar with having multiple
Yeah.
sexual partners as well. Once you finally get married
Yeah.
and you settle down, if one person is more experienced than the other, then that person might be saying, oh, do this and do that and put your legs up. And the person that's not as experienced, you know, won't be able to meet up or match. And then you've got like a complete disconnect. And sex is supposed to be something so beautiful. It's supposed to be within you know, a marital relationship.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be two people coming together. So when you have these issues that you've brought in from your single life into your marriage, then, you know, where do you go from there?
Yeah. Brilliant point. 100% agree. Ryan?
Yeah, I just want to kind of, I was kind of reflecting back, and um, here's a typical day for me. Get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, say my prayers, so on and so forth. Go to work, come home 6, 7 o'clock, and then you got the whole evening. And
Yeah.
there's loneliness that kicks in. You're on your own. You've got your own house. You've got your own car, whatever it is. You got your own money. You can come and go as you please. And then you come back home. Your friends are married. They're going back home to their wives. You're a single man.
Mm.
You know that they're having sex, but you can't. And you have all these things going on, and then you crave attention. So really, if you're not getting attention from somewhere else, you give that attention to yourself, because you look to do other things. But what really helped me transition out of that phase was, I done a degree. So I managed my time. I threw myself into a degree in my 40s,
Yeah.
and I've done a undergrad degree in sport and exercise science. I've done a master's degree in positive psychology, where I looked at the well-being and performance. And when I looked at my own well-being, I thought to myself, right, that kind of um, allowed my mind not to focus or wander on the need to satisfy myself. I now occupied all my time reading, writing, so on and so forth. The things that helped me at the time were going to the gym, because instead of released, I was going to the gym. So, and those things really helped me. So I think that managing our time, if
Mm.
those are the things that really key and critical in kind of diverting my attention away from the
Yeah.
things that I need. Yeah. So
Yeah. And before I move on to Zena, I think it's also important to focus on your relationship with God as well. So
yes.
I
Yes.
had someone who spoke. I had someone who spoke to me about that issue, about addiction. And my challenge to this person was, you know how you feel totally condemned, you feel bad. I said, think about how you feel now, and trust me, that 20 minutes or 3 minutes is not worth how you are feeling now. So for me, it's really about focusing on your relationship with God and trying to focus on that. And then over time, that addiction wanes off over time, but you need to focus
Yeah.
on God. Zena, over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of bounce off what both Ryan and Andrina were saying. So Andrina was mentioning about the idea of what you do now as a single person will impact you when you're married. So it's being able to
Yeah.
even demonstrate to God, actually, because a lot of people think, okay, we talk about finances, we talk about budgeting. It should be the same thing even with like our sexual lives or lack of it, in terms of, being able to have that self-control now, because I know that it had
Yeah.
been mentioned before, even if you think about the top reasons why people do get divorced, affairs are a massive thing. And you can't just say,
Yeah.
right, do you know what, as soon as I'm with someone, it's going to turn off, because it isn't. So it's being able to practice
Correct.
things that you want now, see yourself as that person now. I think sometimes we kind of just see ourselves as we are now, not our future. But it's like, okay,
Yeah. I
yeah, I'm gonna
agree.
be, I'm gonna be Susie Homemaker when I'm married. practice those things now with your friends and family. You know, it's not to say that just because, you know, when
Yeah.
God brings you something, maybe he needs to be able to trust you now, so that when he brings that
Yeah.
person, he knows that you know, he's not going to jeopardize it. Because also as well, I'm sure we wouldn't want that person doing that. And if we met that person, they were saying they were doing that, you know, we'd be looking at them sideways. So we also, like I said, we need to be able to qualify again for, you know, what we're asking God for. And I think sometimes we hinder ourselves in the singleness, because we're saying, yeah, we're doing everything else right. We've got the house, the car, the degree, and this, and it might actually just be this one little area. And if we sorted that out 6 years ago, you know, who might have known what would have happened? But
Yeah.
also, you know, touching upon what Ryan was saying about a time. I mean, if you can do all of that now, I mean, everyone I'm sure should be on Dr. Antonio's level. We should all be doctors. I mean, the amount of time that we've probably had, but no, like keeping it real to the world. Do you know what I mean? But again, I think, you know, if we go back to the scripture, the devil, you know, makes work for idle hands. I think a lot of it
I
is
don't
down
know.
to idleness as well. Just as like Ryan
Yeah.
was saying, you know, you're going home, it's just you. So just being able
Yeah.
to keep yourself busy. Like I said, we still acknowledge that, you know, we're still human, and, you know, and also maybe I'm not sure about men, but I know for women, maybe just saying, actually, okay, I know at this point, you know, don't set yourself up, but I know at this point, you know, on the 13th, around that time, that's probably when I'm more likely to be like this, or more likely to feel
Yeah.
emotional, vulnerable, and prepare for it. Maybe you need to be with your friends that night, because you're not going to want to, you might not want to do that in front of them. So, you know, just being able, and I think
Yeah.
that, you know, again, it's been mentioned that it's like a male thing, but women struggle because it's it sounds very taboo to say it as a woman. But again, that's why it's nice to have this platform and to be able to talk openly about this matter.
Yeah. And just also, Zena, before I go to Emily, just picking up something about setting yourself up for the future. You know, self-love or self-pleasure is very different to when you are in a relationship with a partner, because your focus is about actually giving them pleasure, not yourself. It's a whole different experience. And if you're caught in that where you're used to masturbating, it's very then difficult to adapt to the relationship with you and a partner where your focus is about giving them pleasure. Does that make sense? So that's also an important point. Emily, to you.
Yes, I what we need to be practicing self-control even before. What if when you get married, for some reason, you have to be separated? Are you going,
Oh no.
because you have been engaging in this habit, you'll probably continue because you haven't been practicing self control and understanding that, you know, if we think about it as being part of the fruit of the Spirit, we would try to practice self control because we don't know what our situations are going to be. And like, I was
Mm.
listening to this single presentation, and it was saying that whatever we think that we practice in our singleness, and when we get married, we think it's going to just go away. But like everyone was saying, what we would want to happen in our marriage, we need to be practicing it from now as single people.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Antonio, go ahead.
Masturbation.
We can't hear him.
Can you hear me?
We can't hear
Start
him.
again on start again,
Start
Antonio.
again.
Start again, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. I think we should have some type of fail-safe, or as I explained to the Iron Men's ministry when I talked to the men about this. Number one, there should be some type of accountability for those who do not have control and who actually tempted, or they need to have accountability partner to help them along. And also, there's another aspect that may also help. I've found a website. I don't know if it still exists, but if a person signs on to a pornographic site, it sends an email to his parent or to his pastor or to someone. So that way he's already in check. Because the next morning, the pastor's going to say, listen, I've got an email that you went here. So those are kind of things that in the physical aspect will help the male to not visit these sites. I've had a friend who did one, and he went on. He couldn't resist it, and he sent 2 emails to his mom and dad. So those are the kind of things that will help you, because that will just physically scare you from going on to it. Yeah. And
Yes.
so the second thing is an accountability partner, a prayer partner, another fella who knows what you're going through.
Amen.
These are the type of things that we need to start working on to
Yeah.
help brothers and sisters to help them come through this. Because I'm telling you something, like you said, Barbara, it is very addictive, and it's just like
Yeah.
weed. Not that I've ever smoked weed before, but
Yeah.
I know that's just as
Yeah.
addictive. It's hard to break, and you
Yeah.
cannot break it by yourself. You need help from God
Yeah.
and from a fellow man.
Mm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think just to close down this question also, I think there's power in people's testimony and sharing experiences. And I think, we need to learn to be a bit more open about our experiences, because
Yeah.
by sharing,
Yes.
it gives someone who's
Yeah.
probably trapped in that place hope. Because
Mm.
if you share and
Yeah.
say, was me and this is where I am now, your testimony gives someone hope that I too can get over this, I can get out of this, addiction or
Mm.
whatever, that I'm in. So it's important that
Mm.
I think as a body, we are open, we're honest, and we are transparent. It's like I think some of
Yeah.
us, we've gone through stuff, and because we've gone through it, all of a sudden that memory's been sanitized. Do you know what I mean? It's like we
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
never there. And I just think as
Yeah.
a body, we need to learn to be open and share, because there's nothing that's
Mm.
uncommon to man. And trust me,
Mm.
to the single
Yeah.
person, if you're experiencing that right now and stuck in there, talk to someone, because trust me, you are not the only one. And that's the
Alone.
fact. You're not the only one.
Amen.
Okay,
Amen.
so I'm going to move on to another question. And this one is to Antonio, Andrina, and Ryan. I'm going to come to Ryan first. Why do you think men seem to be afraid to get married and settle down? Some men, although they are interested in a lady, they tend to be afraid to let them know, one, but especially if the lady is a professional. Why do you think this is? There's a few questions there, Ryan.
Yeah.
So why were you afraid to settle down?
I was never, I was never actually afraid to settle down. To be honest, I think my strength comes in team. I'm a professional football coach. Okay, so I understand what it means to embody team. I think what I was afraid of is finding the wrong woman to settle down with. Um, you know, someone who didn't, support me on my mission. Um, but then I was also afraid of, if I did settle down with somebody, would that take away
Hmm.
from my vision and my purpose? Do you know what I mean? So
No.
for me, I was like, well, I'm more committed to my football, my profession. Not really focused on having a wife to be just yet at first. But then I realised having that security and having that love of a good woman is empowering for men.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but then there'll be times, and I'm being very transparent, where I'll be very interested in a lady. I think we could be in a great relationship. I remember courting a lady for 2 years, and at the end of the 2 years, she wasn't interested. And, and I've done my utmost to try to settle down, but it wasn't God's will. It didn't work
Mm,
out that way. Um,
mm,
so, but then I think that some, and I'll go here, some men don't want to settle down with a woman because they know that basically they'll lose if they ever get divorced, and I don't advocate divorce at all, that they'll lose, there's no security and no support for the men, um, in the country. So a lot of the guys are very careful because they lose their property, the women will get half of it, they'll take their property, and I suppose vice versa as well. And, so I think some men are kind of a little bit reticent in settling down. Um, to ask the second part of your question, and I'll say this, that sometimes, go back to the first part, that when they have children, they, you know,
mm.
they don't have many rights to seeing their children because it's all supported of the women, so on and so forth. So men are kind
Wow.
of a little bit cautious because they know that the system is set up against them, really, and some men prefer not to do that, or but then some men, you can blame some men, they're not kind of facing up to their responsibilities and so forth, but then they tend to get the blame, but it's it takes two. Some men, although they're interested in a lady, tend to be afraid to let them know. Look, it depends on a personality and character. I think
Okay.
that some men are a little bit introverted, some are extroverted. Back in the days, a lot of women like the DJs, so on and so forth, because they're loud, they got that big personality, so on and so forth,
Yes.
and that exudes kind of confidence. But sometimes, you know, I've been in situations where I've driven like my mini metro and a woman's never interested. The following week, I drive a Porsche and the same woman's interested. I'm like, how does that work? I'm still the same individual. know. So and these are experiences that I've had. Not that I've got a Porsche now just yet, but I'm praying for one. But but for me, it's you know, if today women, when you look at women, they are more professional. And I look, and this is really interesting. If I go out to dinner, I went out to dinner with a couple of guys. I'm talking pre-COVID. And what you find is that you go to the restaurants and you will see a group of 6 or 7 women around the table, successful, doing really well, but there's no men at the table. But then if you see a man and a woman go to the table, it's like, wow, there's a man and a woman together, and you can feel the kind of the air change because there's a man and woman.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I think that there's in the last year, especially with COVID, there's so much of a focus on actually women are now lonely, men want a wife, and it's just like this forward. We're now looking at settling down as a way forward, and we're trying to find the answers to our singleness and in our desires to want to be married. I'm not intimidated by a woman who's professional. I'm confident, I'm outgoing, I know who I am, and I know where I'm going. I know my purpose. I know my destiny. I've built my business, www.throughthethirds.com. Yeah, quick plug. No, but for me, but I've done the work on myself, on my own development as a person. So I know that stepping into relationship, I know what I'm about. I know where I'm going. And so a professional woman, she may come across that way, but if she wants to put professionalism before who she is as a woman and a wife to be, then I kind of pull away from that because that's going to go on in
Okay.
a relationship. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my thoughts.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ryan. Antonio, can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why there's such a delay, but okay, here we go. One of the things I do understand with working with men is that one of the problems I believe with brothers is that there's a fear of rejection. Now, when a
Yeah.
brother is rejected, we as males, we take it, see, because we're supposed to show a tough exterior, we internalize the rejection. Whereas a woman will start bawling, oh, he left me, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. They get it out. But with the men, we internalize it. And that is just as damaging to us because we're trying to, I'm an alpha male. But when he goes home, he's bawling his pillow. So the point is, rejection is a real fear for a lot of men. And sometimes they take that into consideration because remember, uh, we are the ones who chase. We are the one that pursues. We have that caveman type thing to go and chase after the woman. And here's what we need to understand. God has given us the instruction to chase. And I always tell men that he has given the woman
True.
the ability to choose. She can
Yeah.
quietly say, well, that's not for me. But we have to learn to, and not to just internalize it, but to deal and to continue to
Yeah.
seek. Seeking You
Yeah.
may find it in the first. Now, here's a problem with us. We are 110% visual. That's part of our problem.
Yeah.
We tend to
Wow.
look at the outside exterior rather than what's on the inside. And that's another part of the problem. Sometimes we see a woman that's really just put together. Amen. Gucci suit, red bottom shoes, expensive briefcase, walking into a Wall Street office, and they say, "No, no, bro, that's not. No, I can't. No, there's no way." But then what you've just done is that you sold yourself short. How do you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we tend to be
Yeah.
visual. Yeah, and that's part of the problem. And the final thing as well, I think to just bounce off what Ryan has said as well, and I totally agree. Uh, when you see a woman that's professional, and as I just explained, uh, we tend to doubt ourselves. That's out of my league. She's out of my category. I have a certain, I think someone was saying before that we have a certain expectation, and that's not it. But you see, we tend to get our wires mixed up. We, in our search, in our looking for a wife, as we're supposed to, we need
Mm,
to be focused on what you want,
mm.
and also
Yeah.
be
It's true.
prayerful. Always be
Mm,
prayerful about the woman that you want to seek after. Trust me. Yeah, and I say from my experience, I've made mistakes in the past, and I went all gun ho, and just to show you, I went to meet somebody in the internet thing, and it wasn't a woman, it was a man dressed up as a woman. So so this is why you have to be very, very careful in these days that we're living in. It's not like the
mm.
innocent days of the 60s and the 50s. And I just want to go back to Eileen, what she had said. She had said the word courting, and I love that word. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I may be old school, but at least with courting, there's an expectation at the end of the tunnel. With respect to dating, there is no expectation because we're just trying out a look at thing. Let me just try this thing and let me just try this bike. If it don't work,
That's right.
no. At least with courting, there's an expectation. That's my little 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you. Zena, then I'm going to go to Ryan as well.
Oh, well, I think
I,
Ryan was first, but I'll go then.
I,
Actually, I was just going to bounce off of what Dr. Antonio was saying, just about courting versus dating. I was actually just going to ask both of you as men, do you think that women actually don't help themselves in men settling down because they're laying everything bare? Before there were certain things that, a man might even have to prove, or vice versa, where a woman would keep herself a certain way, and now it's all over the internet, everybody's seeing it, they've already seen this. Do you think that kind of hinders that process of even getting to that stage of settling down as well, like from a woman? Do you think that women are not helping themselves either? Because if you're going to see everything, and if you're going to experience everything, not even just sexual, maybe just other things that they do that maybe would be expected as a wife to do, and then someone that you're even seeing, not even someone that you're in a relationship, is doing, isn't it? You're kind of like you're getting all the milk and everything, with the cow, everything together, not separate.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Antonio, I'll jump in there, if that's okay. Um, so this is, I'm an advocate on social media. I use it to promote my business, so on and so forth. And what I see is, what I've seen over the years, and this frustrates me, I suppose. But I'll see women go on the internet and they'll be with their group of girls, and I'm giving you the male perspective, all right? And what they'll see is they'll see a plate of food, videoing the food. They'll see a kneecap. They're on the beach. They're in Dubai. Everything's amazing. Everything's brilliant. And the guys think, do you know what? They're going out to dinner every weekend. And the guys kind of think, well, that doesn't really interest me, because what we're not seeing is the character and the personality of the individual. And that becomes really hard, for us to really, well, we're trying to decipher who she's with. She's with, why is such a beautiful woman single? You get women's empowerment, you get women liberation, and when you look at professionalism, some men get actually turned off by that. you know, of seeing all their great successes when we don't even get to see the struggles and the downtime that you actually that reveals who you are as an individual.
True.
You know, I think for me, I think it's really important to really be just slightly careful, um, you know, in choosing the right person, you know, or finding that person to that we're looking for, and selection. Yeah, we have there's a lot of beautiful women out there. There is, but choosing the right personality, choosing the right character is really hard. You got to go through a few women, unfortunately, I'll say, before you find the right one, because you have different experiences, and um,
Mm.
and I've learned from those experiences to an extent where I feel that I'm prepared now and ready to step into a relationship, prepared and ready to step into a marriage because of my own inadequacies at times, but also through my learning experiences and my growth as an individual.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, and that's really
Yeah.
been important for me. So, but I just want to jump on to what Doctor mentioned about being rejected. um, I think it's just quickly. I think that yes, I've been rejected a couple of times, but sometimes I think that what that done that brought me closer. You know, as I improved my understanding, my own personal development and growth, it brought me closer to the person I wanted to be and the worst person I wanted to meet. So sometimes in life, it's all about that character test and that
Yeah.
character growth, you know, that
Mm.
allows you to kind of say, "Do you know what, you got to be resilient, because if we fall at the first hurdle in a relationship and a marriage because of our bad experiences in the past, we'll never be ready." Do you know? So sometimes
Yeah.
us as men have to
Yeah.
take that rejection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay.
Thanks for that response. Andrina, I don't want to forget you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one, please.
Thank you. So in terms of why do men not seem like they don't want to settle down, I think as we've heard, there's probably a number of reasons why it seems like it. I think there is, for some men, there is just too many women. There's too many women to choose from. And they still want to experience, or I think what one of the issues is when you have a lot of choice, you always think that there might be somebody better out there. So you might be with somebody, and if something goes a little bit wrong, you're like, there's probably somebody out there who won't give me this grief, who won't ask me to pick up my shoes, or what have you. And so you're always looking, and I think maybe that could, I think it's referred to as the paradox of choice. And in
Yeah.
terms of why are men, or some men, afraid or don't like to approach women, I think what has been said is very true. It is possibly the fear of rejection, or thinking that woman is out of my league, or what have you. And I do chuckle to myself, because there are some men out there who just do not care. They shoot their shot regardless, and sometimes you might even say, okay, you're going there, all right.
Yeah.
But I rate them, I respect them, because they step to the plate and they say, let me see. But I think it's a good reminder for us as women to be kind in our responses, to
Wow.
be
True.
considerate and thoughtful. So it's not
Yeah.
a case of shooting down a man. How dare he even try and speak to me?
It's
It's
true.
about,
No.
I've really any interest in me. But it's not something that I'd like to pursue at this time. I wish you all the best. And something that I've even learned through online dating is to also extend that courtesy as well. So if I'm speaking to someone for a period of time and I think, do you know what, it's not really for me, rather than ghost them or just disappear, or one day they try to message you and they're blocked, I try to always say, I don't see this going any
Mm.
further, but I think you're great. And I think that, there's somebody out there for you. I think as women, we've got a real responsibility to be decent, to be Christ-like in our responses,
Amen.
and to treat
Yeah.
others the way that we want to be treated.
Yeah, so true.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. That's brilliant responses. So appreciate it. So we're going to go to just our last question. So over to you, Alni.
Right. Okay, we're nearly coming to an end. And it's really talking about married people who can sometimes annoy single. And I've been married a long time, so I hope I'm not in that bracket. But the question is, and it's for anyone, can you highlight some of the annoying things married couple do that offend single people? Emily, in fact, anyone
You
can
want to start?
answer.
You started
Well,
with
Can
I'll
you
I'll
highlight?
it's okay. Well, for me, I think that when it comes, I think that sometimes you expect the church to be understanding, and they sometimes they would say you need to fulfill your purpose, you need to wait for the Lord to bring someone, and then after a while, when they think that you're single too long, they will probably make statement like, haven't you found someone yet? I'm like, I I don't have them up in heaven, make I can't go on a shelf and just pick them up. And
Yeah.
from my perspective, in terms of a woman, and I guess I'm old school, I would prefer if the man would approach me. All right, I'm old school.
Yeah,
So to
Mm,
me, if you say to me, wait, and then you're asking me, and then also you are not doing anything to
mm,
assist the process.
yeah,
So to
yeah.
me, I feel like, why would you make a statement like that? To me,
Yeah.
we need just like, and I think sometimes too, we had the question earlier. I think we put a lot of emphasis on marriage, and we don't even try to let persons really encourage persons to enjoy their singleness. It's okay if you're single. Don't make it feel like something is wrong why you're not married.
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah,
and we have to
yeah,
understand, especially from the woman's standpoint, there is like a shortage of men, and especially in the
Yeah.
church. And if you want to do what is right, it may take a little longer. So we need people to encourage us. Like my godmother said, when I made my 50th birthday, she said to me, Emily, if you get married and it's just one day you enjoy it, thank the Lord.
Amen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very very much, Emily. Anyone else would like to share your
yeah,
views on this
I'll
question?
I'll jump in really, really quickly. I always say that married
Okay.
people are our allies. I love married people. I love when they love us and they want to support us and they come alongside us and they walk with us. Some of the things that
Mm,
it's probably not so helpful to hear is, as Emily said, oh, you're not married yet. Why are you not married yet? Or
mm,
highlighting, oh, your younger siblings married and you're still waiting. And, all
mm,
those things do not help single people, especially if they're struggling in their singleness. So I think it's about recognizing what we say, how we say it. I
mm,
know that some single people aren't the most gracious to married people. So if a married person comes and just inquires or wants to support you, sometimes we're like, oh, what do you know? Or you're married, or you won't ever know what I feel, or what have you. But I
mm,
think as single people, we really need to embrace and accept the support that married people want to give us. Sometimes they're scared to even
mm,
say anything to us because of
mm.
the responses that they've received from us as single people. So I think
Yeah.
as single people, we have a responsibility to be gracious to married people, and married people just keep loving us, pray for us, support us, and just be aware of what you're saying to us from time to time.
Brilliant.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, we nearly run out of time. Anyone else before we
Yes.
put it all up? Ryan?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Some of the things that I've experienced is, enjoy your singleness. And I'm a man. I'm like, enjoy it. Like, I want to enjoy kind of being married or meeting someone to get married. So it's really hard to kind of enjoy my single. For me, that's just like what do you mean enjoy it? I don't want to be single. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's understanding. And what my church did at ICANN Fellowship Church was they're really aware of the need for people to be who want to be married. So what they've done is they've created a group, like they set out a dinner where they've said, right, 45 intentional men, 45 intentional women, you're going to pay
Wow.
£45 each, right? And we're going to book a restaurant, a top-notch restaurant, and those 45 men and female, you're just going to mingle, you're just going to have music, you're just going to dine. Everyone's going to be suited and booted, wearing his shirt and tie, you know, and you're going to have a wonderful evening. But the word intentional is for those who, you know, if you're struggling and you're still developing yourself, you're not going to be intentional. You don't want to be entering into a relationship that you're not really ready to go into, an institution of marriage that you're not ready for. It's those who are really intentional about being married. So, you know, and I'm part of the leadership group, at the church. So
Lovely.
it's yeah.
Yeah.
I love that
Okay,
idea.
just
I love that idea. I think
yeah.
it's brilliant.
Andrina, just a short. No, not Andrina.
Zena.
Whose hand was it?
Zena.
Oh, Zena.
Zena.
I'll be
Yes.
really
Just
short.
yeah.
I'll be
Sorry.
short and
Yeah.
sweet. Okay, I just wanted to say, I actually think that not personal, but from other people's experience, I've seen that there's a tendency to think single people are jealous of married people, jealous that someone's found a relationship, or they're jealous and that someone's engaged, and so they might actually kind of mention you and say, actually, do you know what? Let's walk in details. We don't want to mention that someone's got engaged or married because they might start feeling in a certain way. But there's this absolutely love, and probably people need to adopt, which is, until it's my turn, I will everybody else. So I'll finish it off.
Okay. Thank you very much. Our time is up, and thank you for sharing with us this evening. And I'm sure that our viewers have enjoyed the discussion, and I'm glad that we've touched on some subject that was never dealt with before. As we said, it was very taboo. Tonight we've opened the window, we've opened the door, and everything is aired. So I thank you very much for your time, for your preparation. And I know that this is going to help our people, because that's what we want to do, even as a church. We know it's not just for the church, but sometimes the question is being asked, what is the church doing? So here we are on this platform, doing something for our people, not just our people, but the community. Have you got any last words, Sister Barbara? Barbara, any last word? Okay, well, thank you very much again for listening, and take care, and we'll speak soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Hi there, church family. It's so good to be with you today. We just want you to embrace the worship. We are talking about redigging the wells, and we want you to get involved and know that there is inheritance for you. The Holy Spirit wants to spring up a well in you. So receive, receive, receive. Oh, yeah. There is a river where goodness flows. There is a fountain that drowns sorrows. There is an ocean stirring deeper than fear. The tide is rising, rising. There is a current stirring deep inside. It's overflowing from the heart of God, the flood of heaven crashing over us. The tide is rising, rising. Bursting, bursting up on the ground. Can you feel it now? Up on, we come alive in the river. We come alive in the river. We come alive. Oh, we come alive in the river. 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 We come alive in the river.